Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive RadiOh with author, speaker, and your host, Pat Rouleau. Finally, someone willing and able to blow the top off hidden healthcare and hospital dangers. She's provocative, upbeat, balanced, fearless, fresh. Pat has over 20 years of experience as a professional public speaker and knows how to approach this important subject with enough humor and wit to keep you informed, entertained, and empowered. Each week you will say, "Oh," as Pat explores and exposes little-known hospital hazards, delves into the deep waters of dangerous healthcare practices, picks the brains of her good-looking and influential guests to help keep you and your family safe in today's fragmented healthcare system. The program is not intended to replace medical advice from a licensed professional, but rather to encourage you to become a well-informed participant in your health and well-being. And now, your host, Pat Rouleau.
Hello, I'm Pat Rouleau, and I will be your hostess, your one-stop patient safety radio hostess, where I will spend the next hour serving you a generous helping of everything you need to know to help you and your loved ones stay safe during any doctor or hospital visit. People ask, who are you? Who am I? I am you. I am every person who has ever been in a hospital or doctor's office and has received less than acceptable treatment. I am you. The person who got an infection during a simple outpatient procedure. I am you, the patient whose questions are ignored, who struggles to speak to the doctor as he or she has one foot out the door. I am the missed heart attack, the hospital-acquired infection, the wrong diagnosis, the unanswered call button. I want this patient safety show to be about you, your family, your friends, and your loved ones. Speak Up and Stay Alive RadiOh. Yes, that's OH with an exclamation point. Will cause you to say, oh, as each week we delve into little-known healthcare and hospital dangers. When you understand why something happens, you are better equipped to do something to change it and prevent it from happening to you. If enough people begin to speak up, together, each of us can alter the current precarious path of today's unsafe healthcare practices. Well, today is another fine day for learning about patient safety. And being a safe patient actually starts long before you pass through the hospital doors. There are plenty of opportunities in our daily life to practice smart and healthy ways to avoid a hospital stay. And we'll hear about some of those in a moment. And later in the show, we have a special guest, E-Patient Dave. What does the E stand for? Well, just by listening to this show every week, you are actually described by one or more of those E's. So he'll be here shortly. In the meantime, find your extra special comfy seat, turn up the radio, turn down any other ringing or buzzing devices, and enjoy this next fast-paced hour with us. But now, it's time for the healthcare hazard of the week. Recently, I was a guest on a local radio program called Living the Word with Glenn Mertz. And part of our conversation was about bacteria and infections, not just found in hospitals, but in our everyday life. So today, I thought instead of my usual hazard monologue, I'd play a short segment from our chat because it does cover a lot of ground. So here it is.
With me today, though, patient advocate Pat Rouleau. Speak Up and Stay Alive, that's the name of her book, her website, and her Saturday morning show airing right here on WHKW between 9 and 10 o'clock, talking about a lot of different things involving hospitals and talking about, there's some places that bacteria exists that we wouldn't expect.
There's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. And out in the real world, right here at this radio station. Right?
Now I wipe everything down, so we're good here today.
I do, too. Every time I come in, I bring my disinfectant wipes. I had a guest on my show, a Dr. Chuck Gerba. He's a microbiologist at the University of Arizona. Actually went to his lab where they swab things, and he had a nice conversation with me. He said they went to different media outlets, newspapers, radio stations, and they found that the radio station people were the germiest people.
I believe that.
He said possibly because nobody ever sees their workplace, and so
it gets used by so many different people, in and out. These microphones aren't just used by you and I. They're used by a lot of different people, so I wipe these down. You have to do that.
I do that too. Because people do not wash their hands properly. It's not just in hospitals. It's everywhere. Did you ever go? I love it. You go to a restroom. You're in a restaurant. You go to a public restroom, and you watch how people wash their hands, or they don't wash their hands.
I've seen that. I'm like, okay, we won't be shaking hands.
No, they either just do it very cursory and just a quick wash and walk out and do the old hand wave where they shake the water off their hands and then they wipe their pants with it.
Yeah.
I was in a restroom at a little bakery deli one day, and there was a gal who actually worked there, had a name tag on. Her hand was wrapped in a bandage, so she had this really nasty ace bandage on, and she came walking out of the handicap stall and proceeded just to walk out. Well, doing what I do now, I stopped her and I said, "Excuse me, are you not going to wash your hands?" She looked at me like I had three heads. She said, "I wasn't going to the bathroom. I was changing the toilet paper roll." I'm like, "Well, still, you were in here."
Yeah,
so she proceeded to walk out, went back into the kitchen. I went to the manager and I said, "Excuse me, but that young lady just was in the bathroom, walked out, and now she's in the kitchen." Again, he looked at me like, the crickets were chirping.
Yeah.
I'm like, hello, the cross-contamination is a problem everywhere, restaurants, everywhere.
I know a lot of people are a little hesitant going into some of the restaurants. I mean, they look clean, but how do you know?
Think of the menus. Did you ever watch a server or bus person clean the table, and then they use that same rag and clean another table, and then they wipe the seat of the chair, and then the next person comes and they wipe the table again, and then they give the menu a swipe? Well, what are they doing? They're cross-contaminating.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not cleaning. I've been in restaurants where you see a baby sitting on the table wearing a diaper, and then when they leave, the server comes and just gives it that little quick wipe, and then uses the same cloth to wipe the menus. So when I go to a restaurant, after I order, after I've touched the menu, that's when I excuse myself, go to the restroom, and wash my hands really well.
I heard one of the biggest places where we pick up germs is the gas pump.
Yes, because think of people, again, not washing their hands, use the gas pump. So I always keep a bottle of hand sanitizer in my car with me and disinfecting wipes. Hand washing is the best way to get rid of germs, but if you're out and about and you cannot, here's the trick with the gels and the alcohol gels. I used to get the cheapy one at the dollar store, cost $1. Don't do that because the alcohol content is low. It might be 60%. I use the Purell, and Purell came out with a product called Purell Advantage.
Okay.
It's got maybe 70%, a higher alcohol. And then when you put that on your hand, put enough on, your hands are going to stay wet for 15 seconds. It's called dwell time or wet time. Right. Don't just put a tiny drop, and you need enough product on your hands so that your hands stay wet for 15 seconds.
Well, mine usually stay wet for like a half an hour.
Good, you're clean.
Well, there's bacteria all over the place.
In your home, washing machines. And again, I got this from this microbiologist, Chuck Gurva. He said they swabbed washing machines and found that 90% of washing machines had E. coli in them. Found like a peanut size of fecal matter in people's washing machines simply because people do not wash with as hot water as they usually did in the past. So you use a warm wash or you use a cold wash because you don't want your clothes to shrink. So there is no heat involved in getting rid of that bacteria. So what he suggests, obviously do your underwear load after everything else, and then occasionally give your washing machine a mouthwash. Run it empty, a hot water cycle with a cup and a half of bleach. Okay. And that way to clean out the bacteria.
That'll really clean the bacteria out. Now, what about the dishwasher?
Not that it's a new problem, but there is mold and fungus in dishwashers. Black mold exists between the gaskets in a dishwasher.
Right.
So again, they're saying to not to use bleach, that could damage the parts, but white vinegar, baking soda, and scrub manually, and then do a very hot cycle with the vinegar, a cup of vinegar sitting on your top rack of the dishwasher, and run it through.
Vinegar really is a good source of killing germs, isn't it?
Absolutely. Vinegar is vinegar and baking soda. You can do a lot of heavy duty cleaning with that.
And it's not as expensive. How often should we change our toothbrush?
I do maybe like once every 6 weeks because you've got all that bacteria in your mouth, and then you let it sit there and it's wet and moist. Shove it back in the bottom of a toothbrush holder or maybe in a drawer.
Well, the problem is a lot of people don't even store their toothbrushes correctly either.
Not at all. And a lot of people store them next to the toilet. And when the toilet flushes, then you have what's called a toilet sneeze. And all of that spray comes around the bathroom and may land on your toothbrush.
Oh, I was wondering what that was. I kept saying, God bless you, every time I would. We don't see these around too often, but they still exist here and there, and that's the water fountain.
Oh.
I usually don't use them anymore because, first of all, they're not, like I said, they're not around too much, but they still exist, especially in some of our schools. Mm-hmm. How can you clean that, and should you even use it?
I would never use that. I remember in grade school, kids would actually put their whole mouth over it and then turn it on and see how much water they can get in their face. I don't know if the kids still do that. No way would I use a public water fountain.
At all?
No.
I know. I can't go to the hospital.
You just have to hedge all your bets and try to do the best you can. Otherwise, you don't want this to be the first and foremost thing on your mind. I mean, you need to be wary, but not crazy.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? And again, I mean, we brought up a lot of things here, and it's good to know about, good advice to know about. There are certain places, though, sometimes you feel kind of powerless to be able to clean. Like if I would get into an airplane, I can't do anything here. You can't do anything anywhere. So that's a tough one too. That's something you have to bring up on your show because, Pat, we're out of time. Saturday mornings, 9 to 10 on this radio station. Then WHK, when are you on there?
7 to 8, Saturday mornings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pat, give us your website again.
SpeakUpAndStayAlive.com.
Good. You can get the book there, and you can also request that she come and speak out of your church or school, whatever it might be. Pat, thank you much. Blessings to you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Glenn.
That's going to do it for today. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow on AM 1220, The Word.
And with that, let's hear some legal news you can use. Listen as I spend the next 2 minutes with Pat Schraff, an elder law attorney at Schraff & King, located on Psalm Center Road in Willoughby Hills, Ohio. She always has the answers. Welcome to the show, Pat.
Thank you for having me.
Pat, what is a long-term care ombudsman?
A long-term care ombudsman is a person who will help to represent the rights of individuals who are consumers of long-term care, whether that's at home, in an assisted living facility, or in a nursing home.
Who needs to know about a long-term care ombudsman?
All those who receive services either in their home, in long-term care facilities, in assisted living facilities, need to know that they have an advocate in the long-term care ombudsman. The long-term care ombudsman is there to help them resolve complaints. I think it's interesting to note that 50% or more of people in nursing homes do not have family members to help represent their rights and help to resolve concerns that they have regarding their care.
So this is a voice for the people. Where can we find the ombudsman?
The local ombudsman, which is located in Cleveland, represents Geauga, Cuyahoga, Lake, Medina, and Lorain counties. The state ombudsman has offices throughout the state of Ohio, though, so there are regional offices for the long-term care ombudsman in Ohio.
If our listeners want to find out more about the long-term care ombudsman, where can we go to get additional information?
They can receive information at info@ltco.org or by calling the ombudsman at 216-696-2719 or 800-365-3112.
And if our listeners need help with that and want to talk with you personally, how can they find out more information about you and Schraff & King?
They can reach us at 440-585-1600 or at our website, www.schraffking.com.
Thank you, Pat. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Jerry the Germ, here to spread healthcare and hospital safety tips all over the airwaves. Here's our expert, Pat Rouleau.
Hey, Jerry. I bet you and your germ friends just run and hide whenever you hear the happy birthday song. What do I mean? Oh, yeah. People are finding out that the best way to disinfect their hands is to use good old-fashioned soap and water and a lot of friction. And they know that 15 seconds of scrubbing will do the trick. How long is 15 seconds? Long enough to sing or hum the happy birthday song. And long enough to scrub not only the palms, but the tops, sides, in between the fingers, and under the nails. And when folks go to the doctor's office or hospital, they're asking their providers to wash their hands too. Yep, everyone's humming the happy birthday song just to get rid of you. For more patient safety tips, visit SpeakUpAndStayAlive.com. Sorry, Jerry, but you're going down the drain.
Listen to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. For more information, go to SpeakUpAndStayAlive.com.
Brought to you by Generation America, the smart and traditional 50-plus membership organization. And they provide a full range of benefits to members. If you're looking for a quality Medicare supplement, their rates are lower than the other 50-plus organization 3 out of 4 times. Generation America. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org.
You're listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau. And as part of our Summer Just Got Serious guest lineup, we couldn't be complete without a visit from today's guest. He is Dave deBronkart, known on the internet as ePatient Dave. He is the author of the highly rated Let Patients Help, a patient engagement handbook. After beating stage 4 kidney cancer in 2007, he became a blogger, health policy advisor, and an international keynote speaker, and he is today the best-known spokesman for the patient engagement movement, attending over 200 conferences and policy meetings internationally in the past 2 years, including testifying in Washington for patient access to the medical record under meaningful use. I asked Dave to join us today simply because of this one word, passion. I've watched his videos and talks and am always left with a tear, several goosebumps, impromptu clapping, smiles, cheers, and always hope. So with that, welcome to our show, ePatient Dave.
Sounds like you're not short on passion yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, there's lots to talk about, but I think it's important for our listeners to know about your personal journey into patient advocacy and what you do today. What does the E stand for in your name, ePatient, and how did you come to use that name as part of your story?
Well, the term e-patient was coined by a doctor that I never met. He died a year before I got sick. His name was Tom Ferguson, and it stands for empowered, engaged, equipped, enabled. The original meaning was the electronic, the online, the internet patient. These days, all kinds of people are online without being empowered and engaged and so on. So these days, the relevance is best for the fact that this is somebody who's actively involved, and the internet is just one of their tools. When I recovered from my cancer in 2007, I spent 2008 learning about this movement because my primary physician, Dr. Danny Sands, was one of the pioneers of the movement starting back in the 90s. And one thing led to another, and I ended up getting some notoriety in 2009. Once I learned about the movement, I said, well, this is a cool thing. And I've been in online communities since 1989, back on CompuServe. And I know sometimes somebody will take a nickname. And since my name, deBronkart, is not something anybody knows how to spell, I decided to just start signing myself ePatient Dave, sort of like Pirate Bob,
Yes.
And it took. So when things transpired such that I got some notoriety, I just kept that name, and it eventually became my Twitter handle, my website, and everything.
Well, it's very memorable. I agree with you. And so you said the E's stand for, tell our listeners what they stand for again. Empowered,
engaged, equipped, enabled. Sometimes people will say expert patients, educated about evidence, whatever E you want. The point being that an empowered, engaged patient is one who's actively participating in how their case goes, as opposed to the opposite image that I have as a disengaged patient is somebody who treats the whole medical experience like a car in a car wash. Drive in, you roll up your windows, you get stuff sprayed on you and maybe a little stuff sprayed on your undercarriage, and you drive out. But the engaged patient is somebody who's interacting with doctors and nurses. They're paying attention to what's happening. They're checking their medications to make sure they're correct. They're studying to learn as much as they can about the procedure that's being done. And it's a funny thing because people naturally do this more naturally do this when it's their baby or perhaps their mother that's being cared for. They want to understand what's happening. And for whatever mysterious mental reason, people are less likely to do it about themselves. Maybe it's an overly activated sense of trust in the system or whatever. My point, I was saved by great medicine. I got into this advocacy not happily because I experienced harm, but because I saw how much more we could achieve. And that's why my message is not patients know best. My message is let patients help.
So with that in mind, I've heard you say that the most underutilized resource in healthcare is the patient. How can patients help?
Well, in fact, that term that expression has been said since the 1970s by a guy's name is Dr. Warner Slack, and even starting back, I recently saw a newspaper clipping of him in Madison, Wisconsin in 1968, where computers were just beginning to be used in medicine, and people were saying, it's funny, here we are all these years later, people are asking this again, will computers replace doctors? Well, 45 years later, that hasn't happened, so I don't think anybody needs to worry about that. But what Warner Slack said at the time in this newspaper clipping was any doctor who can be replaced by a computer should be, because there's so much more to the art of medicine than pure computer logic could do. I mean, IBM's Watson, which beat the best Jeopardy champions in the world, is just beginning to be used for anything medical. The point is that we're faced with these increasing challenges of how to make the healthcare system deliver more effectively, and yet we have the most motivated stakeholder, the patient, the family member, and culturally, medicine too often assumes that because the people in the bed or at the bedside don't have medical training, they must not be able to contribute anything.
Right.
A little tangent here, but a really important one is I heard last month, this was on a blog post by a doctor about an article he'd seen by another doctor saying that, and this is mind-blowing, 2/3 of all the humans who have ever lived to age 65 are alive today. And when you consider that they're living longer, we are living longer, we're going to have an awful lot of workload for hospitals and doctors. It just doesn't make any sense to put all that burden on the profession when there's so much that we can do ourselves. Ferguson wrote in his manifesto about how there's just too much information for any doctor to keep up anymore. And my oncologist, David McDermott at Beth Israel Deaconess, has validated this. He said, unless you're a subspecialist, he doesn't just specialize in kidney cancer, he specializes in metastatic kidney cancer. He said, if you're a subspecialist like that, you might be able to keep up with the literature, but otherwise there's just too much. Donald Lindbergh, the director of the National Library of Medicine, was interviewed by Tom Ferguson, and he said, if I went home every night and read 2 journal articles, at the end of a year, I'd be 400 years behind. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that was 10 years ago. There were 800,000 new articles published in 2010 alone. The point is that there are so many things a patient can do to be involved and help bring useful information to the table. It just doesn't make sense for us to look away from that possibility.
After all, you're the one that has the skin in the race, and the doctor is seeing so many other patients. And as you say, there's so many diagnoses, and they can't keep up with all of them. So it really behooves us to do that research and come prepared with questions and knowledge and present that. But a lot of times, though, the patient gets pushed back when you take this information to your provider. And when we ask questions and we arrive with knowledge, how do we deal with that fear that we are going to receive some negativity from the provider?
Well, this is the work of culture change. There's very often, culture is the set of shared expectations and beliefs about what's possible that form our shared view of the world. And any time culture changes, whether it's civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, there's a period of time where people's beliefs start to get maybe cracked open, or a glimpse of something new becomes possible. In business transformation, people often say that culture eats strategy for lunch. You can educate people all you want in corporate workshops and so on, but until the culture actually changes, you're just going to have frustration. Because I'm a child of the 60s, and when I was in college in Boston, feminism was sweeping through. Boy, was that eye-opening compared to, I'd come from a small town. I had 100 kids in my graduating class outside St. Paul, Minnesota, and from there I went, boom, into Boston, in the middle of the Vietnam War and everything that was going on. So I got schooled in some of the most radical feminist perspectives, and then I would go back home on summer vacation, and it was a very different view of life there. And as time went by, I saw people start to realize maybe I should think differently or maybe I want to think differently about this, until we shift people's perspective on what's possible and appropriate behavior, there will be resistance. Now, Dr. Sands actually wrote a few pages of that book you mentioned, Let Patients Help. And he has guidelines there and advice for how to talk to physicians about it. There's a sensible thing to do is come in and say, I was trying to understand what's happening, and I found this. What do you think? Now, a common problem here is that physicians, especially primary physicians, are under constant pressure to see more patients in less time. And I have two things to say about that. First of all, it turns out that a core reason for that is a price-fixing cabal that was just written up earlier this month in Washington Monthly magazine. It's called the RUC, the R-U-C, and they set prices for who gets paid how much in medicine, and they devalue primary care because this RUC is mostly run by specialists. So it turns out that is the source of primary physicians having too little time to listen to us. The other aspect there is today, the medical practice generally is not set up with anybody else who could help us. There's this general rule across all industries that in a really well-tuned organization, everybody's operating at the top of their license, which is why, you won't see, say, a division chief emptying wastebaskets during most of the day. People are supposed to operate at the top of their license. Well, doing a rudimentary glance or evaluation of a website is not the most valuable use of an MD's time. So I've been saying for more than a year now that in my vision of the medical home of the future, there will be a role called the information coach. Somebody you can call up, or if you want to get really modern, maybe even do it online and say, hey, I've got this rash, I found this website, what do you guys think? Beautiful thing about that is, see, it may be a nurse's aide or an RN, it may be somebody with a bachelor's, I don't know, but somebody in the practice who is able to say, hey, yeah, that looks good, or no, stay away from that. The beautiful thing about that dynamic is that it puts competence in the home. I think for patients who want to feel empowered and not shut down, it's important to know that for the first time in history that I'm aware of in American medicine, reimbursement rates now are going to be partially tied. And when I say reimbursement rates, I mean how much individual practices and hospitals get paid for doing a particular service will be partially based on patient satisfaction.
Right.
So things like, how you were treated when you asked a reasonable question will start to go into their reimbursement schedule. So it's a good time for people to not be afraid to speak up.
Absolutely. We talk about that all the time on the show. So much more we can talk about. How can our listeners find out more about you and what you do? Well, ePatient Dave is my website, and there's an About Dave page there. Okay. And it has links to all kinds of stuff, my Wikipedia page, my whole scary cancer story from 2007, and lots of other resources. And it's an excellent website. It's ePatientDave.com. Dave, do you have any final words of advice for our listeners today? Realize that you yourself may be the most underused resource in your own care, in your family's care. Okay, and also realize that the people in the medical professionals caring for you may not realize that. And so learn to speak up. And step one of being empowered is to become aware of what you would like and to realize what you would need to ask for in order to get it. And then step two is becoming brave enough to speak up and ask for it. It's all about knowing that you have the right to ask for those things. I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate your messages. I'm going to be sure to send our listeners to ePatientDave.com. Thank you once again so much for sharing your expertise and for taking the time to be with us today, Dave. Well, and thank you for getting it. I know the work that you've been doing is absolutely as straight as an arrow, pointed in the right direction. Godspeed to you, and I'd be happy to do more later. Good. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast.
Let's spend the next 2 minutes with our resident cleaning and infection preventionist, Daryl Hicks, nationally recognized as one of the top experts in infection control, as well as author of the book, Infection Prevention for Dummies. Daryl, we know that double dipping a cracker into dip or a chip into salsa can spread bacteria from a person's mouth to the food. Is there a double dipping rule when it comes to cleaning?
There sure is, Pat. One of my pet peeves is to go to a restaurant or a dining facility and see the same bucket and same cloth rag used to wipe tables, wipe seats, and pick up stuff off the floor, and then they put it back in the bucket and use it the next time. So all you're doing is overloading the cleaner or the disinfectant that's in that bucket. And when it becomes overloaded with soil, then it no longer is a disinfectant. You might as well just be using water. So our folks are trained to set up their bucket with the water mixed with the disinfectant, to put their clean microfiber cloths into the bucket. When they pull a cloth out, they wring out the excess disinfectant, and then they fold the cloth in half and half again, and then that gives them 8 sides to that one cloth. After using those 8 sides, then the cloth never goes back into the bucket. It goes into a soiled laundry bag that then goes to the laundry to be washed and dried. Never double dip into a bucket. So even at home, if you clean a bathroom with one cloth, then you should not use that cloth for other bathrooms or other surfaces in the home. Try to use one cloth per room.
Great advice, Daryl. So no matter whether we're eating or we're cleaning, no double dipping.
No double dipping.
Very good.
How can we learn more about you and your book, Infection Prevention for Dummies?
That would be on my website, darylhicks.com.
Thank you, Daryl, for joining us today. We look forward to your weekly guest visits, as you always have so much usable information to share.
Thanks, Pat.
Once again, we have my friend Elizabeth Bailey with us, and she is ready to share some valuable patient safety checklists with us found in her book, The Patient's Checklist. Listen as Elizabeth spends the next 2 minutes with us to share some of her easy-to-use checklist tips and tools. Elizabeth, tell us today, what are some things a patient should bring for a hospital stay?
Here are a few simple things that oftentimes people don't think about. Hospitals are very, very noisy places, and sometimes it's really difficult simply to just get some rest, and sleep is essential for healing. So I suggest patients bring earplugs and a sleep mask. Hospitals are also often very cold, so I always suggest bring some extra socks so your feet don't get cold. Circulation is a really important part of the healing process as well. One of the most important things I think people can bring is an economy-size hand sanitizer, and that should be placed on the bedside table because patients should be washing their hands as much as your family and healthcare personnel who are dealing with you. Having a hand sanitizer on the table right next to the patient is a reminder for everyone that hand hygiene is crucial. And finally, I would suggest bringing a family photo that reminds you of life outside the hospital and reminds you that you are a person first and a patient second.
Oh, that's great advice. I love the hand sanitizer idea, to bring a giant one, place it on the table. They can't miss it. The photo idea is an excellent idea as well. Tell our listeners how they can learn more about you and where they can purchase your book.
My book is on Amazon, but you can find out more about my book and me by going to my website, thepatientschecklist.com.
Well, Elizabeth, I thank you for sharing your wisdom and advice with us today. You and I have had similar paths, and I am happy that those paths have crossed. And you're a welcome addition to our show, and I look forward to more of your tips next week.
Thank you very much for having me.
You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. Now you can join us every Saturday morning on 2 Cleveland, Ohio stations from 7 to 8 Eastern on AM 1420 WHK and from 9 to 10 Eastern on AM 1220 WHKW and on 2 Phoenix stations On Saturday morning in Phoenix, Arizona from 6 to 7 Mountain Time on AM 1360 KPXQ, and on Sundays in Phoenix from 9 to 10 Mountain Time on AM 960 KKNT, or listen to us live online from anywhere in the world at the station's websites. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau. So happy to spend this hour with you to help you survive any healthcare or hospital encounter. Now, if you tuned in last week, you heard my healthcare hazard of the week, that being smart meters. If you are not familiar with this new digital meter that is being forced on everyone throughout the country that emits electromagnetic radio frequencies all over your home, I encourage you to go to our website, speakupandstayalive.com, and listen to my information. There is a link to last week's segment that I encourage you to share. In some states, you can opt out, but you need to know that, and no one will voluntarily tell you. In other states like Ohio, the utility companies are now just beginning to install them, meaning they will show up at your home, swap out your safe analog meter for the new radiation-emitting meter in the name of saving energy. And in reality, you cannot save energy. Where are you going to save it? The bank? In your hat? On a shelf? Right now, you can temporarily opt out, but we are looking to demand a permanent opt-out choice. And really, this whole disastrous mess, bottom line, is all about choice and the freedom to choose. We can either idly sit back and let the utility companies control our appliances and thermostats based on how much energy they think we should be using, or we can take back our right to choose. There's so much more to know, so I encourage you to visit the website, speakupandstayalive.com, where you will find a place that you can add your name to the list of folks who care about our future privacy and health safety. Or you may call me at 440-725-5462. I wrote to all of our state and local representatives and told them nicely that I am poised to make noise. I hope you lend your voice to this serious game changer. Well, now, to lighten the mood, today we opened the game chamber and everyone decided to play one of our newest and most fave games, Are You in Jeopardy or Are You Safe? We'll gather our contestants in a moment. All right, so here's how it goes. I will describe a healthcare or hospital-associated scene, and you, our contestants, have to decide how you would react to that situation. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? Today we have two contestants.
Is Don in the booth? He's ready. Okay, here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, cue lights, music.
Now entering the studio are today's contestants.
We have our first contestant. Your name is?
I'm Bob from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and I'm a former financial planner.
Bob from Tennessee. And our second contestant is?
I'm Eric. I'm a regionally famous radio producer from Northeast Ohio.
Okay, and we've got Eric, who is regionally famous. This is very good. And we have you, our dedicated to patient safety listeners from all over the globe.
These people will compete today on
Are You in Jeopardy or Are You Safe? All right, guys, are you ready to go?
Let's go for it.
Let's do it.
Okay, here's the first scenario. You are a patient in the hospital and your nurse walks in with a paper cup filled with assorted medications. You ask what they are. Oh, just your usual. Here's some water, the nurse replies. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? What do you guys think?
I'm saying you're in jeopardy. I would want my medication already wrapped where I could pop it out myself to see what it is.
Okay, that's what Bob thinks. What do you think, Eric?
Sounds like a dangerous cocktail.
It does sound like a dangerous cocktail. You both are right. I think it's safe to say that you would be in jeopardy. Ask for the Daily Mars, M-A-R-S. Yep, like the planet. It is the medication administration record sheet that is generated each day for your nurse to use so she knows or he knows what medications to give you. When you have a copy of this, now you are able to know exactly what you should take, what they look like, and so on. It's about being informed and engaged. Good job, guys.
Oh, good. Let's go for another one.
All right, here's scenario number 2. Everyone who enters your hospital room places their stuff on your tray table. Bandages, the blood-drawing bucket, visitors' purses, your meal tray. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? What say you, Eric?
I don't want all that stuff where my food is going to be.
I agree with you. What do you think, Bob?
I sort of think you're in jeopardy. That's an area that needs to be just strictly for the patient, not for everybody else.
I agree. I think you're both right. That tray table is a handy shelf, isn't it? But think about the amount of cross-contamination that takes place. Use the canister of disinfecting wipes that should be in your room, or bring your own, and frequently wipe that table, leaving it wet for as long as possible. Then toss those wipes in the trash. Don't reuse them, and rewash or sanitize your hands. You guys did good.
Oh, that was a good question.
All right, here's scenario number 3. Your doctor enters the exam room, washes his or her hands, puts on a clean pair of gloves, examines you, removes the gloves, and rewashes hands. Are you in jeopardy, or are you safe?
Personally, I'm going to say you're safe.
My instinct says that I'm safe, but I'm scared this might be a trick question.
He knows me too well. Actually, you're right. Your instinct is right. You are safe. I mean, there's obviously other things that could go wrong, but that is a safe practice, yeah? It's a far cry from many doctors who enter the room by way of the doorknob and immediately extend a hand to shake yours. In fact, I just received an email from a woman who said her doctor handled the bottom of her shoes to test for something or other, then proceeded to examine her neck. She nicely called him out on it, and then he profusely apologized, saying that he should have known better. So it's not weird or rude to ask your provider to wash their hands before touching you.
Yep, he doesn't know where those shoes have been.
No, he doesn't.
You got it.
You guys are good. All right, here's scenario number 4. Your friends visit you in the hospital and always eat your hospital food because you don't like what they serve. Are you in jeopardy? Or are you safe?
I remember you addressing this on a previous show. You're supposed to keep that food for yourself. I forget what the reasoning was.
All right, I'll tell you in a minute.
I'll tell you the reason on that, Eric. I believe it's because if they're monitoring your food intake, then they need to know how much you actually ate. Make sure you don't get dehydrated.
You guys don't need me at all. I should just leave.
Good question.
Good answers. Yep. Here's the thing. Many times the nutrition staff monitors what remains on the food tray as a way to keep your nutritional needs in check. And Bob, you said it, malnutrition and dehydration during a hospital stay are very real hazards. So it's a good idea to simply leave behind what you choose not to eat and don't let visitors eat your food. You could become malnourished and the staff will have no clue. All right, here's our final scenario number 5. You are a visitor in a hospital. Upon returning home, you remove your clothes and shoes and wash your clothes in a hot water and a hot dryer. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? What do you think, Eric?
Again, I want to say safe, but very cautious.
A cautious safe.
Truthfully, you're as safe as you can be, but you don't know if the hot water gets all the germs out, but I would say safe.
Okay, I think you're both right. It's a safe practice. Germs and bacteria live in the hospital and can live on fabric for long periods of time. So there's no point in taking chances of bringing them back home with you. So before you plop down on your favorite sofa with contaminated clothing, we say, get undressed at the back door, run naked through the house, and delight or terrorize your family members in the name of safety.
Thank you. That's a good visual.
Well, now that we're all naked and decontaminated, I'm not sure who won that, but what do you guys think?
I think it was 5 good questions.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think you're both winners. What do you think, Eric?
I don't know that the visual I just had in my mind was not a prize I really wanted to take away from this, but otherwise I'd say yes, we were both winners.
Yay. Radio visuals are always good. Well, thank you, Bob, and thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right. I hope you guys come back, and thank you, Don Pardo, and thank you, friends, for playing our newest and most fun game ever. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? No. And listeners, don't go anywhere. There's so much more you can learn about healthcare and hospital safety on America's favorite and perhaps the only patient safety radio show. Speak Up and Stay Alive, Radio. On this show, we talk about the need for a patient advocate during every healthcare or hospital encounter. But advocacy also includes whom you rely on when it comes to health insurance. And when it comes to your Medicare supplement plans, you must compare. And you must compare with an impartial provider. And that's where Generation America comes in. You've heard them on this show before. Listen while I spend the next 2 minutes with Chris Alberta, the Medicare supplement partner with Generation America, as we discuss the importance of choice. Chris, can you tell us how are you and Generation America different when it comes to choosing a Medicare supplement plan?
They're doing something, Pat, that is really unique. As opposed to looking for an opportunity to hook up with one carrier or a company with a couple of products, what they said to us was, how can we offer everybody who's a member of our organization basically a menu? Many people don't know this, is all these Medicare plans, most of them are exactly the same coverage. The only difference is the price that you pay. We work with probably upwards of about 50 different programs and carriers around the country, which is most of them. And Generation America hooked up with us and said, listen, how can we show our members every single program that's available in their zip code and then really break it down according to age and price so they never end up overpaying? All of the reps that work for us have been licensed and trained in this kind of work, and most of them have worked in the field, Pat, actually at the kitchen table with folks. So they're not just, like a sales bank somewhere. They really care what you get, and we pay them exactly the same either way, which is cool because there's no incentive to ever recommend one product or one company over another.
That is great to know. People need choices, and they need to feel safe when they make those choices. So how can our listeners find out more, and where can they purchase the proper Medicare supplement for themselves?
Well, the website, generationamerica.org, is the main portal. That's the front door, really, for that team.
Well, thank you for spending the time to clarify Medicare supplements with us today, Chris.
No problem, Pat.
Remember, folks, Generation America is on the right side for seniors. For more information or to join, visit generationamerica.org. You're listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio, every Saturday morning in Cleveland, Ohio, and every Saturday and Sunday morning in Phoenix, Arizona. I am Pat Rouleau, your hostess and author of the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide, available at all of our live speaking events or at our website, speakupandstayalive.com. That's where you can also locate radio show times, dates, and station information. That's speakupandstayalive.com. And if you want to purchase the book but do not have internet access, it's okay to call me. Lots of folks order the book by phone, so give me a call. I look forward to talking to you. 440-725-5462. Well, today we heard a bit from a live interview where the show host, Glenn Mertz, and I talked about bacteria and infections out and about in the real world. And if you want to stay out of the hospital, then I think it's a good idea to practice intelligent preventative measures such as good daily hand washing, safe kitchen and laundering hygiene, and healthy lifestyle habits. Every little thing we can do in our normal daily life can keep us one step further from landing in a hospital bed. And our guest was the one and only E-Patient Dave, who shared the importance of becoming equipped, engaged, empowered, and enabled, which in turn will allow us as patients to help the medical staff ensure that we have a safe experience. Be sure to visit his website, epatientdave.com. Now, if you missed some of today's show and want to become a full-fledged e-patient just like Dave, it's not too late. You can go to the RadiOh link at the speakupandstayalive.com website and click the link with today's date. That's where you can also purchase the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide. I can't tell you how many people have told me that they take the book with them to the hospital or bring it as a gift to a friend in the hospital, lay it on the tray table, and how that generates such positive conversations with the healthcare staff. Now, at a glance, they know that you are an e-patient, empowered and educated. So if you do not have a copy, I really do encourage you to have one. And again, if you do not have internet access, it's okay to call me and order by phone. Many folks get the book this way. 440-725-5462. And let me take a moment to thank all of our radio sponsors and weekly guest experts, because thanks to them, we are here, and that helps you stay safe. We have Schraff & King, attorneys for all of your advanced planning needs in Willoughby Hills, Ohio. Daryl Hicks, consultant and author of the book, Infection Prevention for Dummies. Generation America, the AARP Alternative. Elizabeth Bailey, author of The Patient's Checklist. Junction Auto Family in beautiful Chardon, Ohio. Mountain View Funeral Home and Cemetery in Mesa and Queen Creek, Power Tags, Titles, and More in Queen Creek, Hari Khalsa, your champion for healthcare advocacy solutions, Casey Quinlan, Mighty Casey Media, and author of Cancer for Christmas and the Coyote Coupon books. I encourage you to support these fine folks, and you can find their information at the SpeakUpAndStayAlive.com website. Oh, and be sure to listen next week as our Summer Just Got Serious guest lineup continues. We will have Dr. James Merlino from the Cleveland Clinic's Office of Patient Experience with us to explain why and how the clinic is taking a step forward to improve the overall patient experience. I know I'm looking forward to that conversation, so I hope you join us. You may not be familiar with some of these folks, but our summer guests are hotter than a trip to Death Valley, California in August, which, by the way, I've done, and it is toasty. So share this with your friends, your neighbors, your in-laws, your outlaws on Facebook and Twitter. Tell them to cancel all plans, mark their calendars, and set all alarms for when? You know when? It's next Saturday morning, where you can find us in Cleveland, Ohio, from 7 to 8 Eastern on AM 1420 WHK, and from 9 to 10 Eastern on AM 1220 WHKW. Or you can always listen live from anywhere in the world on the internet. Check the SpeakUpAndStayAlive.com website to find out how. Start your week with an O. Speak Up and Stay Alive, radio. In the meantime, I hope you have a healthy and a happy week. I am Pat Rouleau, and I am your guide to safe and successful healthcare and hospital encounters. And that's a wrap.
The information provided in today's broadcast is for informational purposes only and was not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem and should not be considered as medical advice. If you've missed part of today's show or just want to share the information with friends, you can listen to all of Pat's previous shows at SpeakUpAndStayAlive.com. Want even more information? Purchase a copy of Pat's book at SpeakUpAndStayAlive.com. Once again, it's SpeakUpAndStayAlive.com. Or you can call Pat at 440-725-5462. Until next week, remember, it's okay to ask others to wash their hands. You have to speak up and stay alive. Generation America supports Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Generation America cares what their members think about the issues affecting seniors and ensure their voices are heard. And they provide a full range of benefits to members. If you're looking for quality Medicare supplement, their rates are lower than the other 50-plus organization 3 out of 4 times. Generation America. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org.